Hello and welcome to the 2020 Youth KA3 Startup video. The aim of this video is to provide you with the information you need to manage your project effectively. We will be covering information about your grant agreement, special and general conditions and annexes, and we will also be covering impact and dissemination. Under KA3, there were two types of activity that you could have applied for. These being national meetings, which are normally held in the UK, and transnational project meetings that can be held outside of the UK and within the countries of the participating organisations. These meetings would normally be a seminar, national meetings, consultations of young people, and events that promote debate. On screen, you can see all of the different budget categories associated with KA3. For your type of project, there are two types of costs in your budget. These are called unit costs and real costs. Unit costs are awarded based on fixed rates. If you remember, in your application, the travel was claimed according to distance bands and set rates. This means that if the activity takes place and the person travels, your project will be entitled to receive the full fixed rate. Real costs work slightly different. They are based on the principle of real costs, and we will only fund your actual expenditure. If you have been awarded special needs or exceptional costs, please remember that we will pay according to receipted expenditure. Therefore, you will be required to keep receipts and invoices. Next, we're going to look at your grant agreement and the contractual rules. The first thing to mention is that you should have all received your grant agreement via email. Your grant agreement is split into two parts, the special conditions and the general conditions that can be found on our website. You should have received the following documents along with your grant agreement. Annex 1, the general conditions. Annex 2, this is an important annex as it contains specific information regarding your budget and provides you with a clear breakdown as to the amount of funding you have been awarded for each budget category. Annex 3 is the financial and contractual rules. This contains clarifications on the use of the grant under the different budget categories. And most importantly, here is where you will find details on supporting documentation that you will need for the different budget categories. Annex 4 details the unit cost your project should work by and the applicable rates. Annex 5 is the mandates, and Annex 7 is the bank details form. If you've not done so already, you must return this along with one scanned copy of your grant agreement. Part 2, General Conditions of your grant agreement, can be found under the General Conditions section on our website, and we would recommend consulting Part 2 of the General Conditions for mono beneficiaries. We will begin by looking at the special conditions of your grant agreement. Your grant agreement is a legal document between the UK National Agency and your organisation. It is a contract and becomes valid once it is countersigned. Article 1.2 of the grant agreement details your project start and end dates, and you will need to ensure that all activities take place within these dates. If during the duration of your project you require an extension, you will need to let us know within a minimum of 30 days before the end date of the project. Article 1.3 details the maximum amount of grant for your project. This amount cannot be increased retrospectively. It is important to be aware that you are not automatically entitled to the full grant amount. You have been awarded your grant based on the activities that are being carried out as applied for in the application form. Article 1.3.3 contains information about budget transfers. Budget transfers allow you to move funding from one budget category to another. without the need for a formal contract amendment, provided that the project is implemented as described in Annex 2. When transferring funds, there are rules which you must respect, and if you have any doubts, please email us the proposed plan. On the screen now is a diagram explaining the budget transfer rules under normal circumstances, but there are some COVID-specific rules that we will talk about later. You are able to transfer up to 100% of the funds allocated for organisational support to travel and vice versa. You are also able to transfer up to 10% between special needs and exceptional costs. These rules are in Article 1.3.3 of your grant agreement. The national agency makes payments in euros. You will receive your payment within 30 days of the UK National Agency countersigning your grant agreement. Your final report is seen as the request for payment of the balance of the grant, and it must be submitted within 60 calendar days after the end date of your project. Your final payment will be processed once your final report has been submitted and assessed. Please note that all reporting takes place on Mobility Tool Plus. You will receive final payment within 60 calendar days upon receipt of your final report. If the report or project does not meet assessed standards outlined at application stage, the final payment could be reduced or withdrawn. Due to GDPR changes, there is a new clause in the grant agreement that states the division of roles which you can see on the screen. On the screen now are our contact details. Any queries you have regarding your Key Action 3 projects should be directed here. All reporting takes place on Mobility Tool Plus, and you will need to ensure that it is updated on a regular basis. As a recipient of European Union funding, you are required to acknowledge the contribution of EU programme funding. The logo on the screen now should be used on any material produced for your project. You can find this on our website. Next, we're going to look at part 2 of the grant agreement, the general conditions. Any changes or amendments to your project and grant agreement must be made in writing to the UK National Agency for our consideration. If you are aware of any project changes at any time throughout your project, you must let us know. Please ensure that these requests are justified and sent to us in advance of when the change is likely to happen. We will then consider any project changes on a case-by-case basis and be in contact with you. There are numerous changes your organisation may wish to make to your project. You can see a list of them on screen here. Article 2.19 contains information about eligible costs for unit costs and actual costs. The full criteria for eligible costs is outlined here. All costs incurred and activities must take place within the project start and end dates as per your grant agreement. Any activity that falls outside of your overall project dates will be ineligible, and you won't be able to claim the costs for these activities. On the screen now is an example of costs which are considered ineligible. There are additional examples in this annex. Please do check this document carefully. Article 2.27 contains information about checks and audits. Your project is subject to an audit from the point of signature of the grant agreement up until 5 years following the date of the final payment. Audits can be carried out by the UK National Agency, the European Commission, and other Commission-mandated bodies. As a result, it is important that you keep all original documents of expenditure, e.g. travel tickets and hotel invoices, throughout the course of the project. If your grant amount is more than €60,000, you'll be required to keep all original documentation for 5 years. If the grant awarded is less than €60,000, Documents will be needed to be kept for 3 years. Next, we're going to have a look at Annex 3, which details all information regarding supporting documentation. The supporting documentation you will need to provide for the expenditure for travel is a certificate of attendance. You must keep all travel tickets, invoices, and any documents associated with travel costs. Although you do not need to upload these as supporting documentation, you will need to keep them in case of any audits or checks. Organisational support is evidenced as a narrative in the final report, and you will be required to keep a certificate of attendance. Again, any receipts or documents associated with this budget category must be kept in a project file. If you have been awarded funding for special needs support, you must keep the original invoices for each cost, and you will be required to upload these invoices as annexes to the final report. If you have been awarded funding for exceptional costs, you must ensure that you check this section of the annex. There are 4 types of checks which could be carried out during your project as well as at final reporting stage. Checks can be carried out at the final report stage. This applies to all beneficiaries, and your final report is assessed by the national agency. Secondly, there are desk checks which apply to a very small sample of beneficiaries, and these take place at the UK National Agency. If you are selected for a desk check, you will be asked to send in all original documents. We will check them and then return them to you along with the report back to your organisation. On-the-spot checks, which could happen during the implementation of your project and could happen to a sample of beneficiaries. These 2 checks take place at your organisation, where a member of the team will visit and review your project and documentation. Audit visits, which could happen to an even smaller sample of beneficiaries and are performed by European bodies, details of which can be found in Article 2.27. Please ensure that you check your grant agreement and that you keep hold of the documents throughout the lifetime of your project. We know that the current COVID-19 situation is ever-changing and a dynamic situation. We would recommend checking our website for the latest updates, and we have provided guidance in our handbooks and other documentation. Please note that this information can be found in the addendum to your grant agreement. If you haven't already received this, we are in the process of getting it sent out to yourself. Please do ensure you read the document and familiarise yourself with the information contained in it. So we're now going to talk to you about final reporting, which takes place online on Mobility Tool Plus. Mobility Tool Plus is the online management and reporting tool for Erasmus Plus projects. You will need to log into Mobility Tool in order to access the final report. You will need to create a personal EU login account if you haven't already done so. When setting up your account, please ensure that you complete all the mandatory fields marked with an asterisk. Your email address you use to set up your account will need to be the same address that you provided as your contact email address. You will be required to submit a final report within 60 days after the end date of your project, which will cover qualitative and financial information about your project. This is a contractual requirement and will trigger the final payment for the project. In addition to the final report, every participant who undertakes mobility will need to complete a quick online participant survey. You can find more guidance for our final reporting in our top tips reporting document. Before you're able to submit your report, you'll need to upload your supporting documentation and the final report declaration of honour. If you're claiming for exceptional costs and special needs support, these invoices will also need to be uploaded. Please do check the supporting documentation section of your grant agreement in Annex 3. We're now going to look at impact. On screen now, you can see the Impact Plus exercise, which is taken from our website. You can also find a link to it on the slide. So this offers a visual aid to think about some of the groups that you should consider when thinking about the impact of your project. Impact is the fundamental change that happens as a result of an activity. It will generally occur in the long term and often after the activity is finished. When doing the Impact Plus exercise, it offers a visual aid to think about some of the groups that you can consider when thinking about the impact of your project. These include the participants, the project staff and what they have gained from this, the partner organisations and how they have benefited, and the systematic changes that will come from the project. Now we're going to look at how you can share your success and disseminate your project results. The first place you're able to share your success is in-house and at your organisation. You can share best practice with other members of staff and share knowledge and your experiences. On screen is a list of examples of how you can share your experiences. When you are spreading the word of your project and sharing your success, it is important to remember to do this at your organisation and also at a local level. Please make sure that you are using the Erasmus Plus logo. You should be proud to receive funding and shout about your experiences. It is also important to inform all stakeholders of the importance of your project. Also, using different platforms such as training sessions and peer reviews to also share your success. The UK National Agency can help you showcase your project case studies and feature these in newsletters and publications. We can also help you to promote them on Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. We can also help you with contacting press. If you do receive press coverage, please do let us know. We produce a monthly press roundup and put this on our website. Throughout the lifetime of the project, you are able to contact us via the details shown on screen.